Oh. I'll just breathe heavy. How's that?
We are running just a few minutes late. We're going to start in 1 minute. Are you ready now? Okay. I think so. What'd you say? We'll see. Yeah, I hope. I'd like to call the July County Council meeting to order, and we'll begin with prayer. Amen. Thank you, Clay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to be made to our June meeting minutes before approval?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting minutes have been approved. Penny, would you like to come forward?
Thank you, Susan. Corey couldn't be here this evening, and so I'm stepping in for him to give you a brief update. Just a couple of things. First of all, I'll call your attention to the magazine I laid in front of you. This is the East Central Indiana Livability Magazine, and it goes along with our promotion of tourism. If you look on page 31, we are highlighting agritourism. And so it's highlighting our assets that we have in tourism. So it is L&K Produce, Jacob's Orchard, and Whitetail Tree Farm. So you can read that at your leisure. It's a good article, and that is one of the ways we're continuing to promote tourism in our office. So second, some of you may already know, I know you know, Chad, that there was a housing study that was done by Jeff Plaster's regional group. It's hot off the press, so I haven't had a chance to take a look at it. Have you, Chad?
I have scanned it, but not in detail.
Right, so it's done by Tracy Cross and Associates. So I'm not familiar with their work. Haven't had a chance to look at it, just got it today and didn't have an opportunity to scan it very closely. So we'll get more in depth about that as time goes on. So I just wanted to let you know about that. The next thing is our EPA grant. We have completed 12 phase ones with our new EPA grant, and we have completed 6 phase twos, so that we're coming down the home stretch. That'll be, we've probably got $300,000 in our community now to take a look at properties, to look at any environmental reviews or concerns or problems that they have. So we're getting ready to usher one across the finish line, which is when our consultant works with the person that had the phase 2, and they recognize some environmental issues. And so Chris Shaw, we don't have cleanup money, but he proposes a plan to the individual that has that property, and then they work together to send a letter to the state. This is the final application of it. Send a letter to the state, tell them what they've done, then they correspond back, and they say they look at copies of the phase 1 and phase 2. They say, what do you do, what are you planning to do to address this issue? And then they work together with a solution, and whoever the recipient is of the grant, the assessment grant, then most times will have to put their own money in to do the remediation. And so the goal of the remediation is to get what's called an NSF letter, no further action required, which means that the environmental concerns have been addressed. So this, in my years there, this is the first time we've actually got to that crossroad where we have done that. So anyway, that's a good report. In our grant funding, we have probably less than $100,000. So we will be reapplying for that probably a year from now. So if anyone knows of any properties or thinks of anyone that has commercial properties that could be assessed, we still have some funding left, so don't hesitate to send them my way. Okay, the last thing is we are passing out checks tomorrow for our first round of Okra grant funding. There may have been a typo on the email that I sent, but it is tomorrow. It's not a week from tomorrow, so it's tomorrow from 11 to 1 at our office. And we have asked all you, and we've asked the commissioners to come between 11 and 1 if you want to. And you can see our recipients. If you're there, you can get in a picture with them. You don't have to. It's not necessary. You can come for a half hour, or you can come for 2 hours, whatever you would like. So this is our first round of Okra grant funding. We received 18 applications. We processed 16 for a total of $150,000. We will be granting tomorrow and actually handing them the checks. And there's about 2 years of compliance to respond back to any questions that they would have. We just went through our last round of it, and they asked, to have a recipient fill out a form that talks about what their employee count is, how many they have had since COVID, have you been able to hire anybody, what's the wage, just things like that. They don't ask about individual people, they just identify them by number. So everything is still confidential. So that comes to the end of my report. Does anyone have any questions about any of those things?
Not about those, but do you have another Zoom informational and ready tomorrow? And if so, can you kind of share that?
It is at 9 a.m. If anyone needs, if you need any information about it, I can certainly forward anyone the link. The links were a little crisscrossed, and so I tried to get on today, and it didn't work. And so I'm going to get on the one tomorrow. And that is the last thing I'm going to talk about is the READY application, which everyone has a copy of. We're still steamrolling straight ahead. Those applications are due next Friday. And so maybe seeing it in paper form, you can tell it's not a real detailed form. It gives you various levels of how far along you are in the planning process, you or any organization. I think I talked about this last time, as a matter of fact, or maybe it was commissioners. But it's not a super scary application. It just asks details about the project, and the more you know about it, probably the more competitive it might be. So anyway, we've told everybody, there's a ton of questions about it, but we tell everybody, there is actually an email on here that you can address a question to with a gal named Katie Clark, who's leading that Zoom tomorrow morning that I will be at. And it was just a lot of Q&A today, and she explained the process a little better. And so if anyone would like that, I can sure email it to you, that link to a newsletter where you scroll down and just click on it and you'll go straight to the meeting. So, anybody have any questions about Ready in the application?
I
Yes,
do.
Mr. Gray.
I still have another one. I take it that public entities such as local government can apply and suggest projects?
Yes. Yes, local government, anyone can apply. And there is, the ready match will typically be around 20%. So there needs to be private investment and local investment. So people will be calling for money from government. And you just have to get an idea of your plan. I don't think it's real stiff as far as the specific percentages. That's just what they're suggesting. So then Corey Murphy and Jennifer Fox from the foundation are our two our two planning committee members, and they will meet and they will start through the applications. And 50 times in the last couple of weeks, I've heard Corey say, if you don't apply, there's no chance of getting it. If you do apply, there's an opportunity for you to get your project out there and have an opportunity to be called and ask questions about your project. And Corey said, don't get lost in the funding right now, to just apply.
I have a question for Susan. If any one of us 7 have an idea to submit to them, do you want us to run it by you to have some kind of coordination, or do you consider us as individual citizens, or would you like to be coordinated among the council? I don't know if the commissioners are doing similar or not. They can respond, but I'd like to be somewhat consistent as far as Henry County government, the way it's being handled, because we have lots of needs, and we know we're going to be inundated with ARP and food and beverage. And if this is another opportunity for funding, knowing that our requests of what we're going to have is going to be superseded by requests, maybe this is an opportunity for us to submit some of the needs that we've heard of from around the county.
Right, and I also hear in my ear, if you know of someone else that's working on a specific project, it might be good to talk to them to show some cohesiveness. And I don't know if the commissioners are going to apply for any project. Okay, it's under discussion.
Do you have a preference whether or not you get one list from the council, one list from the commissioners? Do you know how the city's doing it?
I would say all you can get are great. And these are plans that are going to live on past this funding opportunity. Because, everything's obviously not going to get funded, and probably the farther along you are, the better, but don't be afraid to apply with spirited ideas. I mean, I know I've heard of 3 or 4 housing projects that are going to be applied for, which, and just to help you understand, that is where the private match would come. If a developer is coming in and has to, build some infrastructure, he may be asking for the money for infrastructure, and he may ask local government to help. And then people that buy houses are part of private investment. So that's what made a lot of sense to me, is that's where the private funding comes in, because it feels like it's the heaviest, but
Okay. Thank you, Penny. Kenan, did you have a preference for how the council did it? I don't think I have a preference.
I don't have any projects in mind myself. I just figured this was a great opportunity for those up here who might have heard something from a constituent, that we could put a plug in for a project that's deemed a priority that will benefit a large number of citizens, or housing, or infrastructure, or whatever.
yeah, we talked to a couple housing projects this week that are interested in applying.
What I would do personally, Susan, if I did come up with an idea after doing the Zoom tomorrow morning, I would put the proposal together and run it by you, so you could be the kind of the coordinator of ideas. But we have 1 week, right?
You have a week, yeah.
Okay.
It's not a huge application, but, I would try not to be intimidated. And there's lots of people that stop by our office, and when they're next to elected
So this is the application that, and you're saying you already have a thought, or you don't already have a thought? I don't care if people send them through me. I don't want it to slow, I mean, if we only have a week, we don't want to miss any ideas. Anyone have a preference? Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I think we should just submit them directly is what I'm thinking.
Okay, so you don't care to know? I do
mean-
not have an idea right now, but I
Right.
might after tomorrow's
I mean,
meeting.
I'd like to know just out of curiosity, just because I think it's interesting, but
What is it, $50 million for the 7 county? That's a lot of money, even if we're fortunate to get 1/7 of that. That's a lot of money.
right, what's the fraction? Okay.
It could be almost as much as the 9.3 million ARP monies we're getting.
Are there certain projects that have your blessing or that you guys are more involved with than others?
Not particularly. Corey's not going to do any application because he'll be sitting in a seat to vote.
I just hope we have projects coming in that are good and substantive. Maybe that's what you're speaking to, is there a way to guarantee that we are putting in applications and that they're competitive?
I would just encourage you to send Corey an email and say, hey, what do you think of this idea? Run it past him or stop, so I can stop up at the office. Certainly, I've listened to enough of the kind of how-to sessions, and I may just go listen to the sessions tomorrow because I got a little snippet and pass down.
So this is open to the entire community? Yeah. Okay.
But please don't be afraid to ask questions if you have any thoughts that are not making sense.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I think to clarify, we said we don't really need to send them through me, but I think we'd all be interested in other ideas if they're not deemed private. It would just be interesting for us all to know. Is that okay, Kenan? Okay, great. Thanks, Penny. Okay. Butch, would you like to come talk to us about the radios?
Apologize for being a couple minutes late. Messed up on it, so I'm going to hand out to you so you'll have it. Some of you, most of you, all of you have received some of this. Been talking with different commissioners and councilmen over the last couple of days. Questions have come up that they're interested in, so I've done some research. And I've gathered some more stuff with this. But, good, I was passing this out to the group. Two packets of each of you take a packet. The white packet, you use the white packet first. I sort of got them in order. Not that I'll speak in order. That's yours and that's yours. Some of them have so much stuff. And I'll go over what you don't have. On the front packet that has the white page, you have already received that, and hopefully you've all read that. Most of you, I think, have. And it basically explains why we're where we're at today. And historically, 911, from the very beginning, the first year we put it in place and we started it, we obviously had to borrow some money to pay for all the equipment, which we did. And that money was borrowed either through a bond or through a company, leasing company, and that was a 10-year note, 10-year bond, 10-year note. And at the end of 10 years, it was paid off, and the equipment was 10 years old and it was outdated, so you'd get all new equipment from Motorola and AT&T, and you'd have to borrow another chunk of money to pay it off. Now, the payments that pay that off, some of it comes from 911, some of it comes from the city cash match, some of it comes from the county. So it's a combination of funds that's in the 911 budget that makes those quarterly payments. So what happened was, and I didn't know about it, I inherited it just like you guys have inherited it, but somehow it got out of a 10-year cycle and it went into a 7-year cycle. In other words, the radio equipment at the end of this year, some of it's already out and not fixable. We've already had one radio go down and they said we can't fix it, it's not fixable. We don't have parts, can't get parts. So, but at the end of this year, all 5 of your base stations will be gone. If they don't break, we're great. We cross our fingers and hold off for 3 years and nothing breaks, we're good. If something breaks, if they're not fixing it, they can't fix it and they won't fix it. So that's what made me bring it to your attention at this point in time. So there's a couple of fixes, possibly, and those are fixes that obviously always cost money. And I've tried to gather up as much information as I can to provide you with that so that you guys can make a decision that's good for the county and good for the citizens of the community. That second form is like this. It's the Motorola Henry County dispatch upgrade. Is for the Motorola equipment. I will tell you that they sent this to me sometime back. I looked at the price on it, and obviously, as you can see on page 6, the price of all new radio equipment. Now, this is the radio equipment in the dispatch center, in the back. It's sort of the backbone, and it's also what's in the dispatch center itself, not the electronic room, but the consoles and everything that the dispatchers use to dispatch out of. It's $382,730. That's the cost of the 800. You don't have it, but I got a sheet I'll hand out here in a minute that calculates all this and puts it together and gives you a total. The other sheet form is this. It says ERS. This is the VHS radio equipment. We run on 800, but there's a lot of the agencies still run on VHS, so we have to maintain both. We've had some problems with the VHF lately. There's several times that myself or Jay Jackson, when he was still here, and Brian True, at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, we have to go out to the tower and reset the VHS units. And luckily, they've always come back up, and we've been able to operate or within a reasonable amount of time. Fire departments, it's a fire repeater and fire, which takes care of all the township fire departments and the EMS services. So if you look at that, it's pretty cheap, actually. It's like $43,000. So it's really not overly expensive compared to the other. And there's a cheat sheet behind that talks about the Motorola 800. There's a couple cheat sheets behind it talk about the Motorola 800. Motorola, when they sent this is out of that big booklet. It's in the middle of that big booklet, that blue one I showed you. But they broke it down 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year, and what the payments would be for the 7 years. They don't warranty their stuff for 10 years anymore. It's 7 years. So whatever we do, we know 7 years from now, we're back to the same boat that we're in right now. Those are the yearly payments breakdown for that. That, for the most part, covers the radio issue, and that's the issue that's most pressing at this point in time. Having said that, we can fix the radio issue, maybe, if we've got money. If not, we can cross our fingers and go on. Problem is, 3 years from now, we're going to have the same issue again with the AT&T phone issue, because it's done. It's 10 years it'll be through its 10-year lifestyle. So we'll have to do something with it 3 years from now. So I'm looking at this, I sort of developed a concept and put it in perspective. This is the original contract from 2013, of which none of us was in your position or my position in 2013. But this is the contract, 10-year contract, and of the 10-year contract for the phones. The cost of the phones, and you've got a cheat sheet there, just a single page. So I didn't give you this. I just give you a single page because the rest of it's, no offense, but it's written by lawyers and it's really confusing to understand. But the cost of the phone system 10 years ago was $778,000, just the phone system. 10 years ago, the radio system was higher too, because the amount of money we had to borrow was over $1 million. Or they had to borrow. I didn't have nothing to do with it at that point in time. It was over $1 million. So you've got that documentation. I got them today because I had a question yesterday from Ed Tarantino about, well, how much will it cost to do the phone system? So I got on the phone today and I got them to hurry up and send me a quote. And the quote that they sent me, sort of shocking actually, for the phone, upgrade the phone, there's four workstations, all four stations. Let's see here, let me find it. It is $329,000. So it's considerably cheaper. Of course, you add the $329,000 with the money for the radios, which is $382,000. It's well, plus the $43,000. It's still under $1 million. So that's cheaper. The sheet that I didn't hand out to you that I'd like to hand out to you now and go over with you.
I have a question while you're doing that. So right now, in your budget, you have $130,000 annually for the radios that you're still paying off.
In my budget, consisting of city money,
Right.
county money, and 911.
And that does not include the phone, the 10-year phones that you're,
Well, that's paying that
that's
loan-
part of it. That's the
that
radios
loan-
and
yeah,
the
that
phone.
loan
Okay.
We're paying right now is a loan that covers the phones
And
and
the radio. Okay.
the radios.
Okay.
So this sheet represents the radio and phone upgrade if in fact you guys wanted to do it that way. Again, one way's not do anything. One way's just fix the phones right now, which is going to be, it's basically $500,000 between the VHF and the 800 system. Or I couldn't get an exact payoff today. They said I had to give them 72 hours to give me a payoff of the Regions Bank, which is where we borrowed the money, or they borrowed the money 10 years ago to do the phone and radio. So, but if you add up I got one more payment this year to pay, and then 3 more years of $130,000 each year to make, so that comes to $163,427. Payoff should be something a little bit less than that, maybe not much, but a little bit. But I couldn't get an actual
hang on.
payoff, but that's the
Butch,
figure.
let me back you up on those numbers. You said it was $130,000 a year for 3 years,
Right,
plus $32,000?
Right.
That's considerably more than $163,000. That would be closer to $420,000.
yeah, okay. Right, no, you're right, 400, so it'd be 400,000. Everything's about $400,000 here.
Okay.
My mistake. Look at the rest of these figures and keep me honest. So annual payments for 10 years on this 10-year loan was over $1 million at the $130,000 a year. The cost of the Motorola 800 at the top of this sheet is $382,730. The VHS radios, to replace them, is $43,000. And if I did my math right, that should be $425,930. The AT&T upgrade equipment is $329,000, and that includes all maintenance for 7 years. There's no other hidden fees for the AT&T. Motorola has maintenance, and I pay maintenance $22,000 a year now out of my existing funds for the radio upkeep. But I won't be paying it next year because they can't maintenance what we've got now.
Butch, are both AT&T and Motorola both have gone to a 7-year max?
Well, I told AT&T that I wanted to quote me for 7 years because I didn't want to have to go split them up again. So that's why. They're just like right now, they'll still warranty what we got for 3 more years. So
AT&T will, but
AT&T,
but not Motorola.
But not Motorola. But 3 years from now, AT&T will not honor their, or not honor, they won't be able to do anything with their equipment, their phone equipment. So at that point in time, you're going to have to pony up money to upgrade the phone system. You'll have already upgraded the radio station, but then you'll have to do the phone system. I guess what I was looking at, and of course my figure's a little off right now, I guess, but the radio and the 911 phone, you combine them two together, total to upgrade both of them, $755,000. That's less than what we borrowed 10 years ago. They borrowed 10 years ago to do this. So if we was able to pay off, if we had money to pay off the existing Regions loan and then got another loan and upgraded both phone and Motorola system, my guess is even though it's going to be a shorter term, 7 years, it's going to be less money. The payments may be about the same or close. Can't tell right now, but it might be something to look into because that way we'd have a system that's consistent, and at the end of 7 years, it'd be time to do the whole process over again. We've always done it every 10 years, and it's always worked out. We've always made all the payments. At the end of the payments, we then get new equipment, get a new loan, and we go back to making payments again.
So do you know what the interest rate was in that Regions Bank, or if it was sliding or set for the entire time? Because I know interest rates have gone
Back
way
in 10 years ago, no, I don't.
Yeah. So it was a bank loan rather than a GO bond.
It's a Regions Bank lease government equipment loan.
Speaking of government, are there government grants, state or federal, to help entities such as ours? No.
I mean, you can go to the Indiana Bond Bank and borrow money from Bond Bank. Sometimes you can get a lesser fee, interest rate, but there's no grants out there that's going to cover the cost of radios. And
it sounds like this could possibly, if we're willing to kind of work through this, could possibly be able to be paid for through American Relief money. Since it's for emergency services, 911 goes out to these people, COVID-related issues, yada, yada, yada.
Theoretically, it might, but I don't know if we want to get into that game of regular expenses that are expected by the county to take care of that we can't continue after those short-term monies are invested here locally.
Right.
Technically, it might, Clay. We could make a case.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. But it sounds like it fits perfect, and it's not a permanent solution for the next 20 years. But since we have the availability of that money over the next so many years, we're already looking at a 7 to 10 year time span here, right? So if we can knock a few years off with that money, that may give us a heads up. I mean, if we have the ability just to borrow it and everybody agrees to borrow it and move forward, then so be it. But it's a suggestion, it's a thought of money that we know we have coming in, and this is obviously a service that we have to do something about, so.
Okay, Butch, I have several questions, if you don't mind. First off, so you're looking to, your recommendation is to make this an every 7-year process?
Well, there's no sense in, to me, there's no sense in buying, and I'd say just do the radio system. We do a radio system, and then we borrow money for 10 years, and then 7 years from now, they're not going to service it, and we're right back in the same boat we are. So that's why I say 7 years. My gut feeling is that 10 years ago, when they were looking at that, somebody looked at the numbers, and they said, okay, this is how much we have to provide this equipment for 911, and this is what it's going to cost us over a 7-year period or a 5-year period. We can't afford that because that money's basically coming out of 911 accounts, and there's not enough money in the 911 accounts to cover those annual fees. So they looked at it and they said, well, let's stretch it out to 10, because that's always what it was before. It was always 10, but Motorola always warranted their equipment for 10 years. So they stretched it out to 10 so they could afford the payments, and now they can still afford the payments on 3 more years, but the equipment may not be there.
So that is a good segue to my second question. Are you still comfortable in your budget with the $32,000? And do you have a number greater than that, since you're wanting to shrink it to 7 years, that is comfortable in your budget?
Well, that theoretically, that number is probably my number. It could fluctuate a little bit depending on how much funds at the end of each year that the state gives us, but there's no guarantee to that. So there's no guarantee 5 years from now that they're going to give me a penny. They wouldn't be giving me, they'll be giving somebody a penny at the end of the year as their surplus money. So that's one of the problems that you probably run into with State Board of Accounts. And then the other thing is I realize cutting it down to 7, but you got to remember you're doing $700,000 versus, I forget what it was, over $1 million. So I mean, there should be a little bit of decrease in the monthly payment on that, plus interest rates hopefully are better down than they were 10 years ago too.
I agree. There probably would be a decrease in the payment if you were just worried about the $700,000. But when I add $424,910.33, give or take, that would be your payoff. You know, you're getting up to $1.18 million, and if you divide that out, you're looking at over $168,000 a year before you involve interest. If we were to try to get a signature loan to pay off the current balance and purchase the new equipment, you would be looking at a signature loan that would be probably closer to $180,000+ a year, $45,000 every quarter versus $32,000 a quarter.
And the short, clean, simple answer to that question is no. It's not, the money's not there.
If we don't pay off and roll it in, then it's much higher.
Because, if my figures are right, I figured, because you had $163,000, but I think that's just 1 year plus the payment from this year.
Yeah.
You have to add an additional to that. So your current balance is give or take $425,000 at this point.
Yeah.
And so that's a big difference between 163.
Sure. I agree. And that was my mistake, and I apologize for that.
Chad, do you recall what it costs with our employees to give a 1% raise? We discussed that last year.
1%?
I think it's going to come down to, we're either going to have to look into the ARP, which we don't want to. I know what Jason Simler is going to say. Well, technically, yeah, you can, but it's not advisable. For the reasons I said, we're supposed to do ongoing expected costs of the county ourselves and budget it ourselves. They don't want to use that for ongoing expenses that we're expecting over the next 10, 20, 30 years.
So what about, would there be any opportunity to use any of the funds for the pay down of what's left if we said we had incurred X amount over the past?
It would be.
It's
like
still
a-
a stretch.
I think
Right,
it's very, yeah, I think it'd be a stretch.
really a stretch. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, plus the state revenue's actually up, if you remember when Butch came to us last month and talked about the
increased.
revenues. And so, yeah, I don't think we can show a loss of revenue. I think that's going to be a tough sell because we don't have any loss of revenue here. His revenue's actually up.
Yeah, Jason
Go
shared.
ahead, Ken. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I was just, Jason said the counties they're working with ARP, the majority of them are not showing a loss of revenue, so it wouldn't fall under that particular category of ARP. So either we're going to have to go to pay for this, either the bond bank, another GEO bond, and we've already said as a council, we think we've maxed out what we can put on the taxpayers given the median household income of Henry County residents, or we do this and forego the raise. There's only X amount of money that we have, so X amount of revenues that we have, and everything's important. So it comes down to prioritizing, or we're going to have to borrow.
Well, and again, I came to you with this situation, this problem, something I can't fix. Sometimes I can come and bring a solution to it. This one, I don't have a solution. I give you some options. You guys, you do whatever it is you want to do. I understand what you said and what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm not really an advocate of taking these guys' raises away from them, especially since they all got guns, for one.
I think we all realize 911 is critical importance too.
And I understand that. I understand, and I think all you understand is critical too. So it's just a mechanism, and we either do nothing and cross our fingers. I think he had asked me yesterday, well, what happens if one of the 5 base stations go down? What do? I said, well, you buy one. You call Motorola, you buy it, they program it, they bring it in. A couple of days later, it's up and running, and you're back working again. Each one of those base stations runs some fire, law enforcement, EMS. There's some state point-to-point stuff that goes through that. So then his next question was, well, what's one of those costs? Well, take the $600-some $1,000 and divide it by 5, and that's what it's going to cost, probably a little bit more. So if nothing breaks, we're good. If something breaks, then we just have to order something, and then we have to figure out how to pay for it at that point in time. So, I understand what you said and what you're dealing with. And again, I'm just bringing it to you so that you know what it is. I don't want 6 weeks from now or 6 months, well, it'll be after the first of the year. After the first year, if we have a catastrophe over there because 2 of the machines go down or something blows up, and you say, well, we didn't know anything about it. I just want to make sure you know about it.
I appreciate you coming tonight, and I asked you to address the whole council because I just thought it would be helpful if everybody understood. So if that happened and one was down for a while, are we missing 911 calls for a certain area of the county?
Phone-wise, we wouldn't be missing.
Yeah, okay.
It's going to be the radios.
Okay, okay.
There may have to be some workarounds, temporary workarounds, which means we may have some dead spots in the county
Okay.
for the day or two that Motorola is trying to put something together and get it to us.
Right.
And get us up and running back again, and then again, we're going to be in the same boat because it's not in my budget to pay that extra
Right.
money.
The
so-
money's still not planned for, but it's not a crisis from a service perspective for 48 hours. It's just that we haven't planned for that money. Is that
Right.
fair? Okay.
When you say crisis, I mean, I
As
guess.
far, right.
I guess if an officer on the street calls and asks for help and our radio's broken, they can't get in.
Right.
That's a crisis.
Right.
If
Okay.
the general public calls and we go to dispatch an ambulance to a location and they can't hear where they're supposed to be going, that's a crisis.
Right. So it is a lack of service for.
Yeah. So, I
for
mean,
48 hours, okay.
So, but,
about 28. so Butch, I want to clarify something real quick. So the warranty runs through the end of the year, and then that's when we run into trouble, or is it ending now? Yeah, well, there was a machine, it was an outdated machine that we had over there. I don't know how that got in that cycle either. It went out a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and they came, they took it, and then they came back and said, that machine's not under warranty. It wasn't covered under warranty because of the age. It had already ran out. The rest of them you've got, the other 4 we got there are. It just so happened that the one that we had there that was older and outdated and not under warranty, there was a second one sitting there on the shelf that wasn't hooked up. We hooked it up and plugged it in. Motorola come programmed it. So that's what we're working off of, that second old one again. It's not under warranty either. The other 4 are under warranty. The consoles, there's a lot of electronics in the back room, but there's a lot of electronics at each one of those consoles. There's 4 consoles. Everything's driven by electronics. And so as of the end of this year, none of those consoles are going to be covered, just like none of those radios are going to be covered. Give you an example. A 911 call comes in. When the call comes in, and you guys, everybody, city, county, whoever, recently in the last couple of years bought the mapping system. Well, it pinpoints that, but it has to go through the phone system to do it. The phone system is what links with Spillman, which links with the GIS department, and it pinpoints it. We've had people call in on the interstate, had an accident, they don't know where they're at, because they weren't reading the mile markers as they were going down the road. And we were able, dispatchers were able to look up there and say, you're at the you're between the 117 and the 118. Then they dispatch somebody to that location. People can text a complaint in, like, I'm in my closet, somebody's broke into my house, they don't want to talk, they can text that in, it comes in. That all comes through the phone system. But as far as the radio, phone systems will be covered for 3 years, radios will not. At the end of this year, the console radio inside the booths will not be covered, and nor will the radio equipment in the back room. So,
And to upgrade, what won't be covered by the end of the year is the 425 and 425,930 for the radios. Is that what?
let me see here. You're talking about the,
Yeah. So what you just described that won't be covered at the end of the year, I just want to know if upgrading that is the 425,000.
the cost of replacing the radios, just the radios, so that next year they would be under warranty, is $425,930. That's replacing the 800s and the VHF radios, both of them.
But not all the other equipment that you're mentioning?
None of the phone equipment.
None of the, right, and that's all still covered for 3 more years?
Phone equipment's covered for 3 more years.
And can you explain the benefit? I understand the benefit of keeping them on the same cycles, being simpler, but what's the loss of not keeping them on the same cycle?
You just have to go back through this process again.
Right.
Somebody's got to find money again.
Right.
But I guess the other, not necessarily negative to it is the $425,093. It's money that doesn't exist right now. So to
Right.
fix that between now and the end of the year, it's got to come from someplace.
Right. And the existing loan is for both things, so it
Yeah.
makes sense to keep them together.
So Butch, are you saying you need to, not to put you on the spot, but do we need to replace it right away, or can we wait until the end of the year and have everything in place in January?
If you wait till the end of the year, then you may end up going through, like, let's say January, you put in the order, it may be March or April before it's installed. So if you, now, one of the options that Motorola did give us in that packet is that the first year payment is deferred. And they've got a breakdown of payments for 7 years, and they're around $25,000 a year. So first year's deferred, and then the second year's $25,000, next one's 26 or 27, then there's, the last one's a little bigger, it's still under $30,000, but they've got it sort of planned out that way. But they'll defer that first year, so in other words, you could order it this month, it could get put in before the end of the year, and then your payments just for Motorola would take place at that point in time.
Is this something we should talk about during budget time and come up with an answer to now that we've all heard all of this? Is that, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we need to try to solve as soon as possible, if we can't. And it's going to be tough to come up with some type of a solution tonight because, so budget time would probably be the next time we get together and can talk about this type of stuff.
Chad, are you working on something brilliant down there? Did you want to?
Well, I'm just kind of confused because here's where I need clarification on that, because I'm referring to page 1-6 of this Motorola pricing information, and it says year one budgetary estimate is $382,000, and then it adds all of these to it as well, because those numbers don't even come close to adding up to $382,000. So if I'm looking at this estimate, it's my guess that we're closer to $600,000 because they're wanting $382,000 the first year, and then they're wanting $25,000 give or take the next 6 years. $25,000 to $30,000 the next 6 years is the way I'm reading this sheet. So maybe I'm reading it wrong.
I think you're reading it wrong because the total cost of the Motorola 800 is $382,730. That's the total cost.
Yeah, and then it says this post-warranty service of $25,000 per first year, $26,000 the second, $24,000 the fourth, $27,000 the fifth, $26,000. So I think those are in addition to that three.
It looks
Is
like
that the service charges that they're going to charge, the warranty service charges?
Well, there are I pay warranty fees of 25. This year I only had to pay 21 because some of the equipment wasn't covered.
Okay.
In my budget, I pay those
Okay.
warranty fees now.
So that's outside the loan
Okay,
amount?
so yeah, that would be outside of the loan amount.
Yeah.
You're going to pay those out of your normal budget
That
anyway.
comes out of my regular budget.
Yeah, but looking at this, that's what I wanted to make sure it wasn't like,
Does anyone else have any questions for Butch? And we meet for budget the first week of August, so it's not that long for us to sit down and talk about it further. Any other questions?
All right, well, thank you for your time. I didn't come here expecting to have any answers anyway, but I did want to let you be aware of it.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks for the information. Okay, and Chad, do you have information about the treasurer office request as part of job classification?
I do.
Do you want to wait until we go down to job classification, or do you want to do it separate, or move it all up? Do you have a preference?
We can do whatever you would like to do, any of the above.
Okay, let's move it down to the job classification then. The sheriff requires a letter from us approving funds to be used from commissary, I believe, for different expenses. And that's been drafted, and I think we've all looked at it. And I think we need to just approve this letter now. Did you want to add anything, Sheriff? Any questions for Rick? Or a motion for action?
I move we approve. as
Second.
presented.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve this letter. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have two additional appropriations. The first one is from the 911 budget to cover the shared costs of 911 annual radio base station maintenance service agreement for city, county, law, fire, and EMS, requesting an additional appropriation of $10,703.01 from 911 state account cash funds into maintenance contracts. Bush, did you have anything you wanted to add to this? Okay. We got more than we expected. Uh-huh. Okay. 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 Thank you. Are there other questions for Butch or Debbie, or a motion for action?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the additional appropriation. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And another additional appropriation from the Lit Public Safety for housing of inmates. And this has been an ongoing discussion. Debbie, does this cover expenses through June? Or have we already paid out through June and this covers going forward? Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. I appreciate that. I just have a question. Do we know what we paid so far this year, Debbie, off the top of your head? Yeah, just so we can think forward for the rest of the year. Okay. 43. Okay. 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 Did you tell him to work on his billing processes? Right. Right. I understand. Okay, so the amount of the additional appropriation is $140,625 to cover housing of prisoners from July forward.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What fund, Debbie, is this coming out of? All these lit, okay, and our balance and lit, safety lit, right? and our balance are going to be able to keep this up for several months? Okay, so at the rate we've been so far in '21, lit's going to be expended before December 31st, if this current first 7 months rate continues.
It does have a good chance to, but we're also trying to stay at 25 and less.
Right.
And the fact we're not paying $50 a head. Now, we are paying almost 40 for Delaware County, but we're paying the 37.50.
And Elkhart was the 50, wasn't it? And we don't have any in Elkhart now. Distance-wise and cost-wise, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, in Boyd County, we're no longer,
And that's down by the river, isn't it?
yeah, 2.5 hours both ways. We're doing our best.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a transfer of funds requested from the coroner's office, requesting $700 be moved from toxicology to vehicle maintenance, with the reason being that he had to replace the dual alternators in the big coroner vehicle. Did you have anything to add?
No, he explains it pretty clearly.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve or any questions?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There is Sheriff's Department mid-year equipment fund financial report, reporting a beginning balance of $46,000, receipts of $173,000, disbursements of $135,000, and an ending balance of $84,000 that we need to accept.
Make a motion to accept.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Chad, I'm going to let you lead the job classification. I'm going to step down for just a second, and I'll be right back.
Okay, so job classification met this afternoon prior to the council meeting. We had a couple things to cover, and I'll start with the treasurer, Bill Upchurch. Betsy, can you maybe help? Thank you. Or Bobby? So, Bill, are you there? Hang on, we're trying to work the technical side out, Bill.
Okay, there you go.
So,
Yes.
Bill came to the committee asking to hire a temporary part-time employee to cover a retiring chief deputy who's been with the county for nearly 4 decades. So he would like to bring a part-time employee into the office prior to her leaving, and then help fill the gap during the time frame in which she would have to be paid out. So Bill brought a request to the committee. He has the funds within his budget in his technology fund to transfer approximately $4,000 out of that fund into this position, which would cover a rate of $13.50 per hour for approximately 28 hours per week for up to 10 weeks to cover that time frame. His chief deputy is anticipating retiring now September the 30th. She has several weeks of payout in comp time and vacation time, so that would put the time frame almost right at that 10-week time frame. He's looking to hire this person in August, and so there will be some, he realizes that he will be short some weeks because of the payout, but he may adjust accordingly within that $4,000 mark. He's not asking for any additional funds out of the general fund. He's just asking for the council to approve a temporary part-time position in his office. The committee voted and unanimously accepted his proposal, and so we're bringing it to the council for a full decision. So, Bill, anything you would like to add?
No, I think you covered it, Chad. Thank you.
Chad summarized the meeting really well. He always does. I just know that many of us have talked about all this institutional memory that's walking out the door, and 4 decades is a lot. So I would hope that we would be able to support getting that next person trained in all of the mysteries and secrets Cindy's learned over the years, all of her best practices and knowledge that gets passed on in his office so they can continue to run smoothly.
I make a motion to allow the treasurer to hire a temporary part-time staff person.
I'll second.
Yeah,
Okay, so any
Hold on.
further?
yes.
Go
Me,
right ahead.
me.
You're up.
I am a strong advocate of person leaving, having someone new coming in whenever it's feasible and whenever it can be budgeted. When I heard your 10 weeks, my mouth dropped. But when you explained that it was the person leaving after, what did you say, 4 decades?
I believe she has 39 years.
4
with the county.
decades. That there needs to be a time where there's the baton and training of the well-qualified, experienced person to the new person. Just when I heard 10 weeks, my mouth dropped. I'm not against doing this. It's paid for. The departments that can't pay for it, I hope we're not starting precedent.
The major hurdle that is there is Cindy has 160 hours of comp time and 4 weeks of paid vacation. And all of that money has to be paid out of the treasurer's budget, so he will be unable to hire for that position for, almost 9 weeks. So any further discussion or questions for Bill or myself or the committee? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. So Debbie, he will need, so we'll need a resolution and a transfer or something in the next meeting and a salary ordinance. So we'll have to go back to this in our next meeting. The next on the agenda is the Henry County EMS. So we have a couple different things to bring before the council on the Henry County EMS. The first is the commissioners are requesting a job description and title position change. The current position is an EMS director, interim EMS director. They would like to make the position a permanent EMS director, remove the word interim. They have updated the job requirements and responsibilities in the description to support that position. And so they're not wanting to ask for any changes in the salary or anything in the exempt. It would still be an exempt, full-time exempt position. They're just looking for a change in the job description and the position. So the committee voted unanimously to approve this. Any further questions?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. One last thing from the job classification. So the EMS would like to create a position of emergency medical services deputy director, somewhat the equivalent of a chief deputy in many of our offices. They have presented with a job description as well as requested a non-exempt full-time position as a Pole 3. The current salary rate of a Pole 3 was less than the requested rate. The current salary rate is $35,771. We spoke at length with the current director as well as the commissioner and the soon-to-be deputy director if this is approved, and the funds are continuing to look very healthy in the EMS department. They've continued to do the phenomenal job and are continuing to not only survive but thrive and are growing every month. And so we're they're talking about continuing this growth cycle, and it certainly seemed exciting to hear them say from where we were. Won't rehash all of those wonderful things we said about them last month, but I just really appreciate the job they've done there. This was also voted unanimously by the committee to approve this. So I'll entertain any questions or thoughts, and Commissioner Plummer's here as well as the EMS. If you, yes.
Just a note from the job classification meeting. Mandy went on vacation recently and handed off all the duties to Lucas and just spoke of how hard he worked during that week when he held the phones. And I think it's great to see that they are obviously such a good team and dependent on each other. And they've both just really risen to the occasion. So it's nice to know that there would be a deputy there that's obviously you guys are working hand in hand and doing it really well. So
I pressed the wrong button. I just wanted to say I didn't say anything last month, but from what the prospect and the forecast was in January to what we heard last month, I think it's a phenomenal turnaround. And whoever is responsible, kudos, kudos, kudos. We would have never guessed the turnaround that's taken place in just 7 months, so you're to be congratulated.
They have done an outstanding job of looking at everything. I am very proud to have them as my, I call them my peeps. They've done a phenomenal job. I will say that a few months ago, Mandy said, our job is to make you, the commissioners, look good. And I said, no. I said, if it succeeds, you guys get all the glory. If it fails, we'll take the failure. And they took that and ran with that, and they get all the glory. They've done the hard work. So, do you guys need anything else? Any questions from them at all?
I would just like to add that this position would be a full-time position, so it would be entitled to insurance benefits. They do have the funds within their department to cover that expenditure, so we would need to get with the auditor's office to find out how we start that back up with the auditor and the treasurer. I believe the rate was somewhere around $19,000 per year total, but I mean, we'll have to double check, but it's somewhere in that realm. But they do have the funds within their budget to cover that as well. So it would not, this is a net sum zero cost to the general fund, and it's all totally within their department. The salary is $35,771 with a classification of a Pole 3.
Make a motion to approve the recommendation of the committee.
second.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that's all I have on that, Susan.
Thank you.
I would just like to mention briefly the EIRPC, since I apologize it didn't get on the list. Myself and Commissioner Tarantino, as well as City Councilman Jerry Walden. Sorry to say Gary. Jerry Walden attended today. As Penny alluded to, we did get a housing study, which is very interesting. I will pass it to the rest of the committee. It's 48 pages long. The housing study was paid for and sponsored by the EDC, so it costs nothing to the county. The EIRPC also covered a fair amount of the cost of it. I'm not sure the exact dollar figure it worked out to, but I believe it was just a few $1,000s. Is that right, Penny? For a pretty extensive study. So the EIRPC, I believe, picked up more than 60% of the cost. So, but it will be invaluable to not only all of the potential investors in real estate, but just the county as a whole. So, and the EDC and businesses. So it's a really good project. We also are finalizing the last Henry County. Every year, each of the 6 counties gets some highway counts. Henry County gets 60 this year. So we are finalizing down to the last little bit of that. That is a huge help to the highway department in that community crossings grants and other grants. It will help show the traffic patterns and the usage of our county roads. And so that is a big deal for the county and will certainly help the highway department in their future endeavors to go after grants and other funds. They are working on a broadband initiative, which I've talked to Councilwoman Mills about, and we're approaching others as possibly volunteering, to be on that steering committee. There is some possible grant opportunities and things there as well. So pretty quick brief. I don't see Ed Tarantino here anymore, but I think that covers the highlights. Plus, we're meeting in person again, which was exciting. It was pretty well attended, so.
That's great. That's good to see. Thank you so much, Chad. Clay, you had something you wanted to share with us regarding our salary discussion.
Yeah, so after the meeting, one comment I had made is trying to, since we know we can't do everything all at once, looking at the areas that are having the biggest problem with retention issues. And so I went and did some homework. I believe that's the Sheriff's Department, myself, where we have the biggest problem of retention issues. And I'm going to present some ideas here that I believe we could possibly find the funding for next year when we are not housing prisoners elsewhere. I think that's going to save us some money there after we get our new jail and everything operating. There is, I do believe we have the ability, I don't know if it's us or the commissioners, but have the ability, or in cooperation with the Sheriff Department, ordinance for false alarms. There are municipalities and local governments that do that. There's businesses that actually budget for false alarms, is what I found out. So there's a possibility. There's a little income there. And then with completely respect our sheriff, and I understand he doesn't desire to charge for escort services for funerals. But I didn't want to keep from mentioning that there is a possibility of that. I think there are some funeral homes that collect that fee for their services, and maybe the possibility of us obtaining that fee for our Sheriff Department. Those are just 3 ideas to help alleviate the call, or to cover some of the cost of what I'm about ready to present, that I would like to see us as a council begin to work on. And there's about three different sections here, I think. If it's not perfect, again, this is just first presentation. Poll 4, I would like to see us raise that to a starting salary of $45,553. That would include our road deputies, our merit officers, and I think there's a couple other positions. I'd have to look back on the sheet. That would be an additional $80,000 to the budget. A poll 5, I would like to see, which is your sergeants. I'd like to see us at least raise that up another little bit to $46,096 starting pay. And then, and typically by that time, they are earning the $250 a year matrix and all that, because they have their time in. And I tried to balance this out also, looking at the market value, kind of where that would put everything, and tried to be cognizant of that also. And then we have poll 6s, which is our captains. I believe we only have 2 of those. Their pay would be a starting pay of $48,922. So the total impact, budget impact for just doing that would be an additional $98,000 to the budget. And then I'm looking at our correctional officers, courthouse security, part-time and full-time. I believe those are poll 2s, poll 3s, something like that. And I was just simply looking at a possibility of maybe increasing that $1 per hour, which would be a total impact to the budget, an additional $85,712. So the total impact would be a little bit under $200,000 for the year. And I believe that we could pick up quite a bit of that just from the savings of not transporting prisoners and some of these other maybe little fees here and there. And I believe that would at least help our retention issue of deputies. And I will leave with this point is because I do believe it is a detrimental area of our county. And we can't help what the city does, but yet at the same time, we have to pay attention to what's happening. We are losing officers. We are about ready, most likely, to lose a few more in the next year or two. And in 2024, a starting city officer will be $49,000, which will, if we make no changes, is, you know, obviously about $8,000 more than a starting county officer. So to me, again, to me, this was one of our biggest retention issues. And so tonight, before we get into budget sessions and everything, I just wanted to be totally transparent and say this is kind of some of the thoughts that I have on that particular issue. Thank
I have
you.
some questions just to clarify. So pool 4, you said raised to 45,000 roughly, and that change alone was 80,000.
That change alone is 80,000.
Okay, and then pool 5 was roughly 46,000. And did you have a price?
Yeah,
for
that change alone is 14,000.
Okay. And then pool 6
Was 4,000.
was 4,000.
Yes.
Okay. And then the number of 98,000 was for all those three together.
Yes.
And then plus the 85,000 for the pool 2 and 3.
Yeah, if we chose to do the dollar per hour for pool 2 and 3, which again, I'm unsure where the courthouse officers fall in that, but that would be $85,712 roughly.
Is this just full-time?
No, it includes part-time also.
Okay. So all the part-time correctional officers, and who else did you list in the pool 2 and pool 3?
It was full-time correctional officers, part-time correctional officers, and courthouse security.
Courthouse security.
Yeah, and so again, these are just some different ones that I'm throwing out here for us to consider, to look at, and to maybe see what we can do. I would love to see us do the full amount, especially to retain our incoming officers. I know they've just hired one recently in the past few months. They've started another hiring process to try to get a list going, and I don't know who applied. I don't know who's on that list, but I do know from what I've heard over the years that we're having difficulty getting the people that we would prefer to hire.
Does this this is just an ignorant question for me, but does this include everyone in the sheriff's department, or have we left people out?
There are people left out of this particular list. I believe most of those are secretarial positions.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Sure. Sorry, I was trying to get my numbers straight.
No problem. I think Clay's got some good ideas. From my own experience, I'm sure the deputies that are here and the sheriff, back even when I was on my guys, some of these places, you had the same place with alarms all the time. And you spend all your time running on alarms when, you know, sometimes they tied you up in something else that was more serious. I think you got some good ideas, Clay.
And so this would, I don't know if we have any part-time deputies. Do we have part-time deputies? We do not. So this is pretty encompassing. Okay. What'd you say, sir? All right. Thank you, Clay. Did anyone else have feedback for Clay or questions? Okay. Kenan, you have several updates for us, an ARP update, a health insurance update, and a highway department update. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. ARP, we've had 3 meetings with about a dozen people per meeting. I think all the commissioners and most of the council have attended most of those meetings. I think the next meeting is going to be planned by the commissioners, as I understand, sometime in early August. The U.S. Treasury's, their deadline for public comment from around the country was last week. So we expect their last FAQ, which has been very extensive, to be published by next week. After that, time will tell if they're going to modify that from the conferences and the readings I've attended. Everyone is saying that they learned quite a bit from CARES. That rollout was not good, and they changed the policies quite a bit. The intent this time is to learn from the mistakes of CARES and hopefully do a lot of that public input and FAQs and not have to modify that nearly as to the degree as they did with CARES, though everyone anticipates there will be some. I attended a June 26th AIC County Council training in Plainfield. They recommended again, for the third time I've heard this, that commissioners and council work as a team on the ARP strategic development. Commissioners develop and pass an ARP plan. Council must approve all appropriations. It was stated by David B., who heads AIC. The teamwork approach facilitates the left hand knowing what the right hand is doing to be more transparent, cohesive, and seamless. The council must know that every project expense that they are to approve as far as an appropriation is not only meets the plan that the commissioners have forwarded, but complies with the Treasury guidelines. By being a part of the plan development process, this will expedite knowledge that we do indeed as a council follow the adopted plan as well as U.S. Treasury guidelines. So it's just basically stressing teamwork. And I think we've been doing that. Pardon? Yeah, yes. So that's been stressed at multiple meetings and readings. So just to reiterate, we need to be knowledgeable. We should not just rubber stamp what comes before us, and I think that's for anything. Other than that, I think the final guidance from the U.S. Treasury will be forthcoming probably before August. The insurance, as mentioned in June, the health insurance fund under the commissioners ended the contract year about $200,000 in the block, according to Josh Hestel. If we hadn't made the payroll and miscellaneous adjustments in April 2019, we estimated we would have ended this past contract year about $250,000 in the red, which is better than the $750,000 that was met us in January of 2019. Adopting the spousal carve-out we discussed at the work session last week would save approximately, and this is a guess, it's not as scientific as it would be if we went what it would save to go from Plan A to Plan B, but roughly $200,000 to $300,000. Right now, we have 75 employee spouses on our health insurance plan. 10 were added after the Henry County Health and Newcastle Community School Corporation adopted the spousal carve-out. June of 2021, the first experience we have as far as the claims and prescriptions. We were less than 100,000 in medical claims and less than 10,000 in prescription drug claims. Overall, that would have been, looking back at last year, that would have been one of the best years that we've had, one of the best months that we had. So we had an excellent first month of the new contract year that began in June. And by the way, no one is discussing that we moved from Plan A to Plan B for everybody. That was only a $90,000 savings. The insurance contract is determined by the commissioners. Those are just figures that were shared at the work session. Number 3, Highway Department. Joe's not here tonight, but I met with him yesterday. He said most of the chip seal road projects and triple seal county road projects are completed as of this week, strip paving projects, and all this is color-coded on the map that's behind Clay over there in different colors. The strip paving projects will start next week, beginning with the South County Line Road west of Indiana 3, which is in terrible shape. After the strip paving projects are completed, employees will move to double seal road projects. The new paver and roller that has been approved has arrived at the company, which I think is Reynolds, John Deere, and Muncie. The tractor is in, the mower has not come in yet. They'll put those together and hopefully deliver them within the next week or two. He shared that the department has 2 part-time openings. One of those who were part-timers recently deceased. He hopes that he has it budgeted for a replacement, and he'll put a new replacement on the new tractor and mower to be mowing roadsides full-time or part-time, given whatever hours that they have for that person. The highway department gets its asphalt from 4 different locations because as of several years ago, we have no asphalt plants in Henry or now Hancock County. So if it's in the southwestern part of the county, they go to Morristown. If they're in the northwest part of the county, they travel to Yorktown. If it's in the northeast quadrant of the county, they go to Muncie. And if they're in the southeastern part of Henry County, they go to western Wayne County. And if the Knightstown folks would allow an asphalt plant over 109. Hancock County and Henry County would be elated in doing somersaults, but no one wants that in their backyard, so we won't hold our breath. But the cost of travel on these large tandem and triaxle trucks is immense. To go 30, 40 miles to get asphalt, and it's only good for about 3 hours, and that cools down. So I could talk about JCAT, but we're at 7:30, and I'm sure you're ready to go home. Any questions?
Thank you, Kenan. Are there questions for Kenan? Was just looking up a request that Commissioner Tarantino had made of me to remind council members of the dedication of the Global War on Terror Monument on Sunday, August 1st at 1 p.m. And those of us who would like to attend should let Commissioner Tarantino know so he can arrange seating for them. So if you guys want to respond to that, that would be appreciated. Debbie, have we set a date for the budget public hearing, or is that what you would like us to do now?
The public hearing would be in September.
Before our regular meeting?
Yeah, the AIC, I think there's a couple, I know the council members are going to AIC, which is the meeting.
Okay.
That would be the, I'm sorry, that would be the public hearing would be in August. Just want to make sure that it's on your August meeting at 5:30 like we've done in the past.
Okay. So the date for the budget public hearing would be at 5:30 before our August meeting. And are there council members that need a different meeting time for September?
Quick,
There's an AIC training evidently.
Annual meeting for AIC, yeah.
did you say the public hearing before our August meeting?
That's what Debbie said.
Okay, okay.
Yes. Correct. And Chad, is there training, and Kenan, is there training in September during the week of our meeting that you two plan to attend?
Yeah, I mean, I believe so, but I thought that was over like midday, and then we could still make it home in time for the meeting. Is that, am I?
I have to stay, but I'll try and make it back. You guys want to try and have it that day. I won't be here to
I
get
mean,
anything ready.
I think with,
Prior to the meeting, somebody else will have to do the itinerary.
well, my big concern is the crazy traffic that's getting, because there's no real good way to get there
Correct.
in some ways. So, I mean, if we could possibly push the September meeting to the 30th
Either the week before
or the week.
whichever one.
Is there an objection to moving our September meeting to the 30th?
No.
Why are we moving it? I couldn't
There's
hear.
there's AIC training that some council members and Debbie will attend, and it's going to be difficult to get back since 70 is not a usable road generally. And so adoption of the budget would then be at 5:30 on the 30th? Debbie? Okay. And then our regular meeting would be at 6. Would be at 6 o'clock on the 30th, and the adoption of the budget would be at 5:30 on the 30th. And our regular date would be canceled. Does that track with everyone? Okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was just going to mention that the EDC meeting, which several of us attend, is at 7:30 on one of the days of our budget hearings, and just wondered if we could move it back a half hour instead of starting at 8:30 or 8:45. I think it's the first or second, Penny knows, second Thursday, so it'd be our last day, which is usually a summary day anyway.
It's our 4th day.
It's our fourth day, wouldn't it be the 10th? No. 12th.
So do you probably not have anything on the schedule for that 4th day, or do you? Right, it's just discussion, so that seems fine.
Like 8:45 or 9, so everybody could go to EDC who wants to or
Yeah.
does. Okay, thank you.
Rather than starting at 8 o'clock on the 12th, we would start at 9 o'clock. All right. Is there any other item of any kind from the council? Scheduling or discussion? Is there anyone in attendance tonight that would like to address the council? Thank you all for coming. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.